What's up, Amazon sellers? Welcome back to the weekly live show where we try to drop some of the most interesting e-commerce news, and we'll serve it up with a side of snark. And then, of course, we will be answering any and all of your guys' Amazon questions. For those of you new here, I'm Chris Grant, and to my right is my Poco Curantian co-host, Chris Rasick. That one, that is not,
Sounds like I
roll off
helped.
the tongue.
Sounds like I helped John Smith navigate through the wilderness of a young America.
Right?
I do like how you say "on my right," but then you point with the wrong hand. Like that's become one of my favorite parts.
Well, my video is flipped, so this is my right hand. I am pointing to my right.
Well, yeah,
yeah.
and I
Yeah,
am
you're
to your
absolutely
right on the video, but when you motion, it's often
It's the other way. You're absolutely right. I should probably fix that. I should fix that.
No, don't. I like it better the way it is.
Now, of course, we're here to try to make your life a little bit easier, despite what Amazon may do. And we're going to answer your guys' questions. And of course, we've got a little bit of news for you guys. But first, I want to talk about something. And last night, I took about an hour or so, and I spent it sourcing with a small group of mine. I was trying to show one very particular method of sourcing. And within that hour's time frame, I was able to find 3 profitable ASINs that I could sell. Now, if I had purchased about 5 of each of these ASINs, it probably would have been about $120 or so of profit. And I could have gone faster, if I was really getting into the weeds. I was really going through a lot of different things, both how to properly source, how to properly vet, things like that. And I was explaining some nuances of the process. But it was teaching, I was teaching live rather than just kind of a watch me source over my shoulder type of thing without any instruction. As I thought about it, at first I was like, man, only 3 in an hour. And I was like, that really sucks. But then I realized that was about $120 worth of profit for an hour's worth of work. If I were to extrapolate that out and I do that for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, it's actually more than most physicians make. Now, I'm not talking specialists, and I'm not talking, the guy who helps you go to sleep if you need to go get surgery, but, a general physician, they're making less than 120 an hour. And what made this possible was actually using tactical arbitrage. Now, yes, there is a learning curve, but once you get past that learning curve and you actually use it properly, it makes the process really quick and really easy. And the ability to do that with a software that's just $69 a month, where you can actually profit thousands of dollars every month if you put the work in, it's kind of nuts. So if you're ready to be able to do this for yourself, plus get access to things like Inventory Lab, Smart Repricer, Feedback Whiz, head over to getseller365.com. That's getseller365.com. Grab yourself a 14-day trial. Go watch some videos on it. I've got some out there. I'm going to be putting some new ones out soon, and see how things go. I think you'll be pretty surprised at what you can get with just tactical arbitrage alone, let alone all the other things that go along with it.
Yeah, I tell you what. I for a long time, numerous times on the various shows and the content that we put out together, I've mentioned that I'm 100% reverse sourcing, and that number is steadily dropping. Not drastically, but it's I don't know, 95% at best. Because with the flexibility you were limited prior to, with tactical arbitrage, you were limited to 4 scans. With Seller 365, you get 5 scans concurrently now. And here's a scenario that I kind of forgot about, but I think it's important, especially with what we are going to talk about in a little bit. There was a scenario I had. One of my girls was sick, so she stayed home from school. So I was, taking care of that. My day was a little bit busier than normal, right? And I had sourcing that I needed to complete from last night. I needed to finish a real big order that I wanted to put in. I needed new sourcing to do, right? And then I got a sick kid and all this stuff. And I found I started seeing a particular site that had a good clearance sale going on. It was it looked like it was a new batch of clearance. I didn't have time to manually go through it, right?
Mhm.
It would have put me so far behind. In fact, I spent about 10 minutes kind of looking through it, and then it kind of registered to me. It said, no, you don't have time for this today, So I took that category, took the URL for the category, opened up product search, pulled up the site, entered the URL for the clearance category specifically, and I launched it. And there's not a lot of products, it's not a big clearance section. It's almost done, but TA found about 10 leads for me to look at. So that's, so it's streamlined that process. I probably would have been dug in for an hour and a half, trying to get through that and look at page after page and manually source it, where, now I can take those 10, hopefully a handful are good. I can get that inventory on its way to my prep center. So it's, and I lost sight of that. I mean, not that I was, inefficient with my TA usage before, but this Seller 365's kind of opened my eyes again to we're talking about just how powerful it is. So it kind of refreshes, your outlook towards what's always been a great tool, if we're being
Yep,
honest.
absolutely. That's actually one of the things I did last night too. And one of the products that we opened up ended up not being in stock. Okay, no big deal. That would irritate a lot of people. But what I did find is on that product that was not in stock, that site had a 20% off sale going on. That's going on for like 3 more days or something like that. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what I did. I said, hey, we don't have time to go down, chase this rabbit trail tonight. I said, but we've got time to set up a tactical arbitrage scan and we'll come back to it. And
Yeah.
actually, that scan finished this morning, and sure enough, I won't be able to do it tonight, but tomorrow, I think I'm going to go live again, and we're going to go through that scan and see what the winners are there.
Nice.
All right. Okay. We do have some big Amazon news. Like this is not just a clickbait headline, and we're going to get there. I promise. Okay. But before we get to the big Amazon news, I saw a stat that I thought was absolutely fascinating. Right. So you hear a lot of people talk about the record credit card debt that Americans hold. It's often followed by a bearish outlook on the economy. But I recently found out that credit card debt as a percentage of household deposits is only 6.2%. It's almost the lowest it's been in 2 decades. It was a little lower when everyone was getting COVID stimulus money. All right. But here's what this means. What this means is that even with record high credit card balances, the ability of the American consumer to service that debt is stronger than it has been in 2 decades, which, despite there being some soured consumer sentiment over the past couple of months, over the past month and a half or so, despite that soured consumer sentiment, it's actually a pretty strong indicator of the ability of the American consumer to be able to spend money. And I thought that was, I had to dig deep for that bright spot in a lot of the information that is coming out right now. We're sort of on a bearish streak in economic news, but I thought that was really interesting.
So this means we really can't afford the eggs. We just resent the price tag, right?
Yes. And no one is saying it, but egg prices are down a crazy amount over like the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know,
It,
Nate McAllister wrote an interesting, well, not many people would find this interesting. To me, I was enthralled when I read it. But the price per macro of an egg is like pound for pound, the high or the lowest cost And yeah, Corey, I freaking love eggs. I could eat eggs every single day.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I actually just saw something that actually explains there is actually a monopoly in the egg industry,
Mm-hmm.
and far fewer eggs that would potentially come in our grocery stores have been affected by the bird flu than the headlines would indicate. But
Interesting.
that's a weird tangent to go on.
Big egg,
So,
big egg industrial
yeah,
complex.
yeah. Well, yeah. You know what? Once you guys leave Amazon alone with your boycotts, if you're so hyped up on sending a message to corporate greed, you know, let's lay off the omelets for a period of time and leave the third party sellers alone on Amazon. But
Mhm.
but anyway, but that credit card, that's interesting because I think it just tells you. I guess you got to watch the triggers, right?
Yeah.
Because the debt load is at a record level. But then there's a little bit of perspective with the percentage of household deposits. And then I think the real rate that we need to watch is the default rate. You know,
Mhm.
it's not a problem if the levels are at the highest level ever, if the default rate is reasonable and not spiking, not causing any concern. So
Sorry, I'm gonna let that go in the background while we come back. All right, let's get to the big news. Okay, let's get to the big news. Adidas has teamed up with Amazon in their Buy with Prime program, and third-party sellers are getting the boot. It is, if you have not seen it posted somewhere on social media right now, you obviously are not a big consumer of social media, and honestly, good for you. I'm not sure who's right here. You for not consuming as much social media as I do, or for me trying to keep a finger on the pulse of everything. But does seem to be a big shift in the Amazon ecosystem. And I've seen a lot of people very, very upset about it. One person even took it out on me a little bit uh, because they didn't like the phrasing that I used, but that's okay. I can take that. I'm a big boy. But first, let's start with a little background. Okay, starting this spring, Adidas is going to be plugging its website and app into Amazon's Buy with Prime program. This was actually announced back in February of some time. So that means that if you're an Amazon Prime member, you're going to be able to buy directly from adidas.com and enjoy all the perks of Prime: free shipping, streamlined returns. Amazon's going to freaking hate that. And the ability to track your purchase through Amazon. All right. This is this is actually kind of a big win for Amazon, which has been pushing their Buy with Prime program as a way to expand its logistics empire just beyond its own marketplace. The adoption of Buy with Prime it's been kind of underwhelming to say the least. But Adidas now joins some other major brands like Belkin, also a third-party seller hater, Steve Madden, Laura Mercier, and even Mr. Beast, who use the service. Uh, this is where things get a bit complicated. If you're a third-party Adidas seller on Amazon, it's not what you're going to want to hear, but yesterday Amazon sent out emails to sellers, and it basically stated it was on an ASIN by ASIN cases. Okay, but there are going to be thousands, maybe tens of thousands of Adidas ASINs that are going to be getting gated. Okay, now I have no way of knowing how much of the Adidas catalog is actually getting gated. All right. Chris, how many ASINs of Adidas and Adidas Originals do you think exist on the Amazon marketplace?
oh boy, Adidas and Adidas Originals, 100,000.
1.6 million.
Holy.
1.6 million ASINs on Amazon are branded as Adidas or Adidas Originals. And I know that There are some very big sellers who have gotten 400, 500, maybe 800 emails because they've got a lot of exposure to Adidas. We've got very limited exposure to Adidas. We got no emails. All right. But third-party sellers are no longer going to be able to list. I'm going to use the word some because I think language matters here. Okay. Third-party sellers are no longer going to be able to list some Adidas products. I was told that it should be most, but I don't think that I would be telling the truth. I would also be perpetuating the doomsday outlook that I believe is not helpful and maybe even bordering on toxic for business owners. All right. But Amazon's now going to source those ASINs directly from ASIN or from Adidas instead. So if sellers have Adidas inventory in FBA that's affected, they're going to have until May 11th of 2025 to sell through or remove it. In the same email, Amazon does encourage you as a seller to bring new, exciting products to the platform to please the Amazon customer. I'm not sure how they wrote that with a straight face when they know this was going to go over like a turd in a punch bowl. Now, as the unofficial and self-appointed historian of arbitrage on Amazon, I do have to remind everyone that this is not the first time we've seen this happen. Under Armour, Wacol, Bali, and other brands have done the same thing. They've restricted or outright banned third-party sellers from listing certain products of theirs. Okay. And yet, third-party sellers are still selling on those brands. Maybe not the stuff that is current season, but they're still selling on many of those brand listings. So the big question is this another sign that Amazon's trying to push arbitrage sellers out? Because I've read that more times than I can count over the past 12 or 16 hours. Well, again, I don't think so. Amazon is not trying to push arbitrage sellers out. I've even seen some folks say that, Amazon wants to go back to being a traditional retailer, cutting out third-party sellers altogether. And Chris can't even hold it in. But if you really look at how Amazon has operated, even under Andy Jassy's leadership, that actually seems like the antithesis of what they've been working toward. Amazon has spent years and billions of dollars building out a logistics flywheel. That is what you can thank that's what you can thank for your inventory placement fees. Okay. But this logistics flywheel really relies on third-party sellers to keep the shelves stocked for the most part. If they wanted to be a traditional retailer again, they wouldn't be pushing first-party sellers into third-party selling like they have been over the past year or even 2 years. So this isn't another death knell for arbitrage. Now, yes, it is a big shakeup for those who are deep in Adidas inventory and hopefully a wake-up call for those who decide to go deep in any particular brand, right? But the strategy here seems to be that Amazon is working more directly with some big brands on their current inventory. Not all. I'm going to touch on that in a moment, while still letting third-party sellers fill in the gaps when brands, don't want to handle that older stock, that past season stock, what they might call dead stock. Okay. Now, we could go down the path of whether or not this is good for the consumer, and I would even argue that it's actually a bad thing for the consumer. If you look at Clinique, for example, many prices of Clinique products have gone up over 100% since they've kicked off third-party sellers. Now, that was a different strategy. That was the brand wanting to be able to control their supply chain. It was not, the brand teaming up with Amazon to handle logistics. Okay. And I haven't done a deep dive into the selection available on Amazon for Clinique compared to what it once was, but I would imagine that it's probably not as deep of a catalog that it used to be. Sure, some of the listings might be prettier, but the prices have gone up significantly and probably to the point where it may keep some buyers away or move them to other brands. So the question remains, if you're selling Adidas, what should you do? All right. Now, these are my opinions. Number one, check on your ASINs and check your email. Okay. Now, I have made it very clear to my email service provider that any emails from Amazon, skip spam, skip any other folders, and get marked as important so that I see them. But I know that that is not always the case for everybody, and they may go to spam. So you need to check them. All right. If you got an email from Amazon, see if any of your Adidas listings are affected. If not, I would keep an eye on them. Okay. Like I said, we don't have a large exposure to Adidas, but I'm keeping an eye on what's going on to see if I need to liquidate any of that stuff. But we don't have a way to know how many ASINs this will actually affect. The other thing is you'll need to sell through or remove any inventory before May 11th. Now, I will have to give Amazon a ton of credit. 2 months to be able to sell through everything is a lot better than what they've done in the past. So, do I understand that this sucks? Yes. Do I empathize with those who are seriously affected? Absolutely. But they could have been like, hey, guess what? Get out of here tomorrow. And they didn't do that. So you've got a nice little deadline on this. Unfortunately, I do think that they may have cut off any merchant fulfilling of these particular ASINs. I have not checked, so I cannot say for sure. But I think that they may have cut off the merchant fulfilling capability for these. So if you've got Adidas stock in your trunk that's affected, you might need to find another channel to sell those on. And now I'm going to beat a little bit of a dead horse here because this is something we've preached for years when others have gone the other direction. And we're happy to coach people into being heavy in a single brand, right? It is time to diversify your brand portfolio. Okay. Go wide. Go wide on products, go wide on categories, go wide on brands. You are not selling products on it. Yes, you're selling products, but you are buying based on data. You should not be buying because, you've had really good luck with this brand or that brand. You should be going only where the data tells you. And I don't think that anyone should be more than 5% of their entire catalog into a single brand. Tops, it should be 10%. And in my opinion, you should have a really good reason uh, for that. Like it was just some ridiculous sale, and you have a plan to move that inventory via another channel if necessary. All right. So, Chris, my question to you is, what would you suggest arbitrage sellers do to adjust their sourcing strategies or their, whatever it is, so that they can not be as affected by these kinds of changes going forward?
Yeah. You know what? If we could, after the show, I mean, I think everyone that is just besides himself over this policy change should probably just go back to some of the shows that we did in Q4 when they temporarily gated Nike, and because everything we said then still applies, right? Like if you were around there, if you weren't selling Nike in Q4, but you were heavy in Adidas, you saw everybody freaking out about spur of the moment regatings in Nike, and you saw people freaking out, and everybody said, "Oh, arbitrage is dead. This is what am I going to do?" Right? So you watched that happen. You watched all these people be force fed the lesson on the importance of diversification, and I guess you just continued to go deep in Adidas. There's some accountability that has to be taken there, and if you're upset about this right now, you're not going to like me a lot. You're going to like me less when we're done talking about this. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, if you're deep and you're freaking out because so much of your catalog is Adidas, I don't have a bright side for you. I mean, that's this is we've seen this movie before. It's just a different franchise, right? Um, top of the show, we talked about tactical arbitrage, and we talked about using it to explore more products. I think I don't know, but I'm sure a lot of those people that are really heavy in Adidas kind of settled into some grooves, and I know at a certain point, in order to scale, uh, you have to go deep in something at some point, I would imagine. I don't know. I'll let you know when I get there. But Chris, you and I are both of us at the same time had similar thoughts of being aggressive as far as like scaling our individual stores. And it's pretty nice when you can go deep. It shortens your sourcing sessions. It makes things a lot easier. But in the back of your mind, you have to know what worst case scenario is. And unfortunately, people having Adidas are potentially experiencing that now. However, we're getting comments in. Corey has 220 Adidas ASINs with 0 emails received. Katie, right behind him, said she has 71 and she got 8 emails. Right, so it definitely is some, Mr. Troll. If you tuned in for this, words do matter, and Chris's word was correct. As much as you wanted to fight him, you know what? Can we talk about the mechanism of this? Because I disagree with your argument in this particular case that this is going to hurt the consumer.
Okay.
I agree with your example of Clinique. I think you're correct with Clinique. I don't think you're correct on this one, right? Because if we're talking about the actual mechanism that's going to take place, customers are going to their shoppers on Adidas.com. Okay. And once you once you add your products to your cart, you're going to go to the cart, and then you're going to be able to check out with Buy with Prime. And by doing that, what you're going to do is you're going to log into your Amazon account. And then from there, you will get, and that's when the free shipping applies, right? So you're a shopper on Adidas.com. And in the new system, you're still a shopper on Adidas.com. Okay. Now the order is going to be fulfilled by Amazon. You mentioned the free returns. Returns will be executed by Amazon. So now you have an Adidas.com customer who shops on Adidas.com now having to move over to the Amazon ecosystem. I can make an argument that you are actually increasing traffic to the Amazon marketplace. You're not necessarily bringing people directly that are looking to shop. However, you are bringing new people who need to access Amazon.com because of an order that they made on a separate marketplace. That's a net positive. I don't know how big. It may not be significant, but it is a net positive regardless, in my mind. Okay?
Okay. I like where you're going here. I've never used Buy with Prime off of Amazon. So I should probably do that. I don't know why I haven't. That really should be one of the things that I've tried just to see how it works.
I think there's different ways that Buy with Prime works, because there is just the mechanism where they become just the payment processor, right? And you can use I think you can use an Amazon Prime card, and you just but it's basically like a PayPal. This is a beefed up version of that. Not only is it Buy with Prime, but the order is being fulfilled by Amazon. Okay, they're not just taking care of the payment; they're actually fulfilling it. Which that's a whole rabbit hole to go down. Which is what this does to their fulfillment centers and whatnot. And any argument that this is going to snowball. Look at what they've done to save space in their fulfillment centers, maximize, shorten the period of time that the products are in their fulfillment centers. They don't have the bandwidth to unroll, to unleash deals like this with a ton of different brands. So I disagree with anyone that says this is just the start of a whole bunch more stuff like this. There may be more, but this isn't going to be the way things are with most brands moving forward.
They can't. Yeah, they can't handle logistics for the entire country. You're right.
Correct. Right. So this is a win for Amazon. I do agree with with the article. It's a nice brand. I mean, Steve Madden's okay. I guess certain people would be excited about Mr. Beast and whatnot, but this is good for Amazon. It's a big name. It's probably, I would imagine it's probably pretty strong with Adidas because they took quite a big hit with Kanye, that whole debacle. They had billions of dollars of Yeezy gear that that they had to slam the brakes on the disbursement of that. So I think it's all right. Look, we've talked about this. This is a branch of a lot of stuff that we've already talked about, right? We've talked about over and over again Amazon's fight against counterfeits, right? I think this is overall, as far as reputation goes, as far as damage control, as far as what counterfeits are on the marketplace. This is a big step forward for Amazon. In general, it's good for Amazon sellers, for the consumer to have a better opinion of the products on the marketplace. Obviously, we're selling our stuff there, so we want the eyeballs that are looking at our products to feel a little bit better that they're going to get authentic stuff, right? And back to the one strong point that we need to make is the fact that this is taking place on Amazon or Adidas.com. Okay. So I think the people who are deep on Adidas, I think it would be a good move to, number one, take stock of what ASINs of yours are affected. See if there's some sort of patterns, that come up. I would imagine that most of the ASINs are probably going to be the big tentpole flagship products from Adidas, right? I've done
Sambas and
Gazelles. Yeah. Those are like their evergreen products, like those things are probably out. But however, there may be mini buy and hold opportunities. There may be seasonal stuff. Sambas in general may be off the market, but you may be able to bring the Lionel Messi, Miami specific colorway Samba. You may be able to bring that to the Amazon market once that stops being produced or something like that, or further down the line, or whenever Adidas decides to take it off their website. My point is Adidas is only going to have so much on their website, because I've been trying to get a couple different colors of Gazelles for months and months, and they just don't have stock, and I can't get them. So Adidas obviously only has what they're going to put on their website. So familiarize yourself with what they carry on their website if you're, insistent on continuing to offer Adidas. If your source that you have has been bled out a little bit, but you want to hang on to whatever you can, familiarize yourself with the Adidas catalog, because I think it's only going to be what's on that site. So get the lay of the land, and I think there's a path to continued profitability with the product and the brand.
I did not have your more positive than me take on the bingo card for today.
Well, yeah.
This is.
I think it's like a knee-jerk reaction now. Anyone, like whatever the person that says this is the beginning of the end, I'm just immediately want to be contrarian. Like, no, you are wrong, and I will find an argument to oppose every opinion that you have from here on out.
Right. Yeah, it's hard not to do that. Now, there are a couple pieces here that I want to touch on before we move on to the next thing. because we've got some smart folks in the audience today. So Chris Beam here, which she's got a podcast with us coming out tomorrow. You're going to want to listen to. She got restricted in several ASINs. Only one email received for one ASIN. Still have a few active ones. She says it's important to create the listing in Seller Central if you already bought the item and it's inbound to you. So maybe they haven't cut off the ability to ship into FBA or haven't cut off the ability to even merchant fulfill. I need to double check that, myself, but create that listing. That way it's there just in case, since we've got till May 11th. So a lot of good stuff here. All right. Let's dive into the next piece. And then of course we are going to answer your questions. So I see a couple questions already, but if you've got questions, drop them in the chat. We'll get to them. The FTC, we kind of did a deep dive into a very small portion of one of the FTC or one of the cases that the FTC has against against Amazon. And today there's been a bit of a twist in another case that the FTC has against Amazon. One that it seems to do a lot more with the budget wars and things like that are going on in Washington, more than it has to do with the actual substance of the case, which is Prime subscriptions. So the Federal Trade Commission has asked a judge in Seattle to delay its trial against Amazon, where it's accusing Amazon of using deceptive practices to trick consumers into signing up for Prime and making it difficult to cancel, which I'll be honest with you, every time I sign into my Amazon business account, they try to get me to sign up for Prime, and it doesn't seem very deceptive. It's pretty easy to pass over. But now, the reason that the FTC is asking for this delay, they say it's because of staffing shortages and budget cuts. FTC attorney Jonathan Cohen made this request this past week, saying that the agency has been hit hard by federal spending reductions and lost key employees working on the case. And this may not be some sort of legal jockeying. They may be telling the truth here. In February alone, the federal workforce shrank by 62,000 people. Cohen admitted to Judge John Chun that he can't guarantee things won't get worse at the FTC, adding that they might even have to move offices, which could further disrupt trial prep. So I'm not really sure this is a great look for the FTC. And even Amazon's attorney immediately pushed back, arguing that the FTC still has its entire trial team intact and that moving offices really should not impact a federal case. The attorney for Amazon, John Houston, even decided to throw a little bit of shade, saying both in government and the private sector, I've never heard of an office move being more than a disruptive for a few days. And I'm going to add a little editorial here. I think he probably did that with a really big, Robert Downey Jr. style eye roll right afterwards. So let's zoom out a little bit. The FTC originally filed this case back in June of 2023. The gears of justice move incredibly slowly, claiming that Amazon tricked and trapped customers into recurring Prime subscriptions without their consent, causing users significant amounts of money and making it nearly impossible to cancel. Amazon, of course, denies everything, and they say that the FTC's allegations are wrong on the facts and the law. And of course, we know this isn't the only case that Amazon is fighting with the FTC. We talked about that other case on Sunday, case that was filed in September of 2023 about being a monopoly. And that case isn't even set to go to trial until 2026. So I'm curious, what's actually going on here? Is this a stall tactic? Is it really staffing issues? Is it the political winds shifting in DC and finally taking hold at the FTC? We know that Lena Khan, who aggressively pursued antitrust cases against Amazon and other tech giants, has been replaced at the FTC. And tech companies, Amazon included, have been cozying up to the new administration. Jeff Bezos, who has previously clashed with Trump, even attended his inauguration in January. Actually, his attendance and his fiance's attendance made for one heck of a meme, since his fiance sat next to Mark Zuckerberg. Just go find it. It's hilarious. Amazon even donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration committee. Melania has gotten a deal for a biopic of sorts on Amazon Prime. And starting this week, The Apprentice is now streaming on Amazon Prime. So there's definitely been some, I don't want to call it quid pro quo, but it certainly feels like palms are getting greased. So the big question is the FTC kind of losing grip on tech regulation? Is Lena Khan yelling at a cloud right now, wherever she may be, with staffing cuts and leadership changes? Are trials still going to be strong, or are they going to be able to make these cases? Because I know Amazon has got plenty of lawyers who will be able to fight this. So, Chris, do you think this is a signal of weakness, or you think it's legal maneuvering? What do you think?
I think this is the receipt for the inauguration donation. This is these are just favors being passed back and forth. It's the White House and basically calling Jeff's office and saying, hey, thanks for the donation. Thanks for Melania's book deal. Thanks for making The Apprentice on the front page of Prime Video. Thanks for the changes that you did with the Washington. What's the paper that he owns? Why am I drawing a blank?
Post.
Washington Post. Yeah, he made changes there to be less critical of the, so you can see what's going on. And however, I don't even think that's that big of a deal, because this case was a joke. My opinion with this was just piling on. Okay. Because if you look at it, why was it the FTC bringing this against Amazon? Why wasn't it the CFPB? Which, if it was the CFPB, it also would have been delayed, because that bureau is being dismantled as well. But that's CFPB territory. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They're the ones that put all the rules in after the foreclosure crisis, and they're the ones with all the regulations as far as what credit card disclosures need to say, and your truth in lending agreement when you buy a house, and that's their wheelhouse. Okay, so this was just piling on to the FTC, so it makes sense that this is the one that will probably just fade away into irrelevance.
Yeah, and I agree. And honestly, it probably should. I just don't know that this had legs. And also, for any of you who may be out there thinking, oh, these guys are showing their political colors. No, these kind of favors happen on both sides of the aisle. While I may like to editorialize a little bit and throw some jokes in, it's just politics. It is political theater on both sides of the aisle. It happens no matter who's in office. So don't think we're trying to throw our weight behind one particular candidate or another, or anything like that. But yeah, it is interesting. I'm actually glad this one is gone. This one, stupid. The Monopoly one, I think, has some more legs. I'm curious where that goes. But let's get to some questions.
Yeah, that one's going to be the better follow anyway. Although, if they gets Amazon to stop rearranging the shipping options when you don't have Prime, like I'd be all for that. That's the only merit that case had,
right?
Because I can't stand that thing. And they shuffle it. I swear they shuffle it different ways. You have to find the shipping option that you want when you're not using Prime. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. Corey, go green. Please all do yourselves a favor and take Michigan State all the way for March Madness. I'll tell you what, I'm going to admit to something that might, I don't think I lose my loyalty card for this, but I was never a fan of the Spartans, but I was a fan of watching Mateen Cleaves when he was the point guard at Michigan State.
Mm.
He was one of my favorite point guards in the NCAA, and I was sad that he could not make a run in the NBA. Um,
Yeah, I was kind of a little bit surprised that he didn't have a better NBA career. But yeah, I was actually a fan of his too, even though um, there's nothing outside of what Tom Izzo did and
mhm.
has done. I mean, it's incredible the results that he produces on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I
Um,
would agree. Yeah, he
but
is
yeah, Mateen
he is
Cleaves.
Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah, hands down, first ballot. No, it should be unanimous when it comes time to put him in. But I was a fan of Mateen Cleaves too. And you know what it is? The scrappy, pudgy ones that can do well.
Yes,
I'm always rooting for the
always.
scrappy, pudgy ones because that gives me hope. That warms that shines a light on my soul, that my blackened soul.
Right? Carrie, I'm glad you enjoyed the thumbnail. I wanted to get something up a little bit different that caught the eye today, and see if it helped at all. All right, Lynn. So for an FBM order, I received a return, refund, replace email saying that the item never arrived. I put in a service request to the USPS. Should I wait to send a replacement or refund? My opinion is I would either replace it or refund it now and just get it over with. Uh, they're probably going to get their money back anyway. It's what I would end up doing. Can you file? You can, or wait, can you have them file A to Z claims for those?
I do not know.
I'd have to check on that. If there is some way to get reimbursed, which there should be if it did not show up, I would try to get that taken care of as well. I don't do enough FBM to be able to tell you for sure.
I do like that. I think in anticipation of what the overall blood pressure was going to be from this show, I like how you just completely ignored Rosalind choosing violence within the first 3 minutes of the show.
Yeah,
I do, I
yeah,
do appreciate that. It's a little bit high energy already, so we need to be careful.
right.
We're getting up there in age.
David, if a sale is a limited time, would it make sense to break up he's talking about a tactical arbitrage scan into a couple different scans so they finish quicker? Um, maybe, but not necessarily. I guess it depends on how big the scan is. Not a bad idea, but over and above the size of the sale that may be happening, you are only limited by one thing, and that is the Amazon API. Now, a lot of people will sometimes say, "Hey, my scan is really slow." And of course, they'll think that that is tactical arbitrage giving them problems. In reality, it's very likely that it's being throttled by API calls to Amazon, because you do use your MWS keys, you do tunnel into your own API, and you are limited based on what Amazon does. So it wouldn't hurt, but if you have too many running at one time, it will actually slow it down.
Yeah, and you got to be careful. You don't want to bog down your searches, kind of, putting the blinders on one site. And David, keep in mind that while a scan's running, you're able to look at the results.
Mhm.
So if you can sort some stuff out and or maybe throw some stuff into a save folder that looks promising, you can actually kind of start getting some of the rewards before the scan's even finished. So keep that
Yeah.
in mind.
Luke, a lot of good deals. Yeah, absolutely. Luke maxed out his credit cards this week worse than he did in Q4. That's fantastic, man.
That's the way to
Over
that's
on
the way to be, Luke.
right over on Instagram, we got a couple here. Um, um, what's your take on the Adidas ungating or gating? Um, you're gonna have to go back and watch the beginning of the show. That's what we talked about the the very top of the show. David, how would you compare the learning curve for Keepa to using tactical arbitrage? Is it a larger learning curve or more challenging? Do you have anything to compare the learning curve of tactical arbitrage to? Actually, comparing it to Keepa is probably pretty good, depending on your depth of knowledge with Keepa. And I'm not saying this is your depth of knowledge, but if one's depth of knowledge is green line, stay flat or go down good, pink line, stay flat or go up good, then the learning curve is going to be a lot higher. But if you have a fairly nuanced understanding of Keepa and a nuanced understanding of the Keepa product finder and how to use it, I would think that you could bang the keyboard and figure out tactical arbitrage in about the same amount of time.
I don't know. See, I think it's like comparing learning to swim to learning to drive a stick shift.
You think so?
They'll both get you somewhere, but I don't know. I don't know how much of one translates to the other. I mean, unless you're talking, unless David, if you're talking about like, if you're talking about like the volume of what you need to know, the good thing about both of them is that you can kind of parse out your methods and become proficient, even though you overall, your proficiency with the tool may be pretty low, but you could, like reverse sourcing or product, the product search, you can get really, really good at that. But there's a whole massive amount of other stuff that TA does that you don't have any clue about. But that doesn't mean that you're profiting and using the tool and it's well worth it already, if that makes sense.
Yep. And sorry, I forgot that I've got a bit of a hard stop tonight, so I've got to get through some of these questions here. Flamingo, do you guys have a cut down list of sites that get scanned for product search in the settings, or do you scan all available always? No, there's a few that I take out. I take out eBay for sure. I also take off I haven't done this in a while, but I do have a list that removes Deal News and Slick Deals and One Sale and Groupon and a few others. So yeah, there are some sites that I like to get rid of.
When is your hard stop? Are we minutes away or?
No, I mean like 15 minutes.
Okay.
Hey guys, which state is best to start an LLC in order to minimize or remove taxes or extra fees in general in regards to wholesale FBA? Which states would you recommend? Whatever state you live in, any state other than the state of Delaware. Delaware seems to be turning a little less friendly toward businesses, but here's my opinion. Okay. My opinion is that I want to be kind because I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm just not sure that this is the kind of question that people should ask. And here's the reason. It really doesn't matter where you incorporate. You're not going to get a tax advantage in most cases by not incorporating in the state that you live in. Like wherever you accept your income, that's where you're going to be paying your state taxes at. You're not going to be able to skip state taxes in California because you decided to incorporate your LLC in Nevada. Typically, the reason people incorporate in some other states is either because it's a little bit harder to pierce corporate veils, or maybe they have some extra liability protections or something like that. It's not usually a way to save tax money. If I'm reading what I've read about it correctly. So just incorporate, just get it done.
Probably the best advice would be to have everything you need in the same state wherever you end up. If you have some sort of, if you're out of the country and trying to set it up, wherever you have everything filtered through, if you have a representative or somebody that handles this stuff, try to make it as easy on you as possible, right? You don't want to have to file paperwork in multiple states, so that's the only advice I would suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then if you're worried about the cost of an actual LLC, like sure, maybe stay away from California. And a lot of people would probably say, well, stay away from Florida. The LLC is actually a lot more expensive here than it was back in Ohio, but that's because there's no state income tax here. So your business tax is an annual fee to the state, which in reality is not that much money. Let's see here. How to use tactical arbitrage for Amazon to Amazon flips. Well, you have to have the pro version of Seller 365 to get access to the Amazon to Amazon flips module. But there is a module in there that will allow you to look for Amazon to Amazon flips. And it compares current prices to historical prices. And in my opinion, it's probably best for finding items that you can set alerts for the future more than it is finding items to flip right in the moment. Sorry, guys. Seeing what other questions are here.
Yeah, Andre has some always solid advice. That's the go-to answer. Talk to your accountant.
That is the right answer. Luke, this is fantastic. Made my second Walmart sale today. They bought 8 items at once. It's at a loss, of course, but made some money. That's right, man. Recouping capital. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Andrew Libby, do we know what happens to customer returns on Adidas during this 2-month sell-off? Added back to inventory or needs to be removed? If it is during the 2 months, I would imagine it would be added back to your inventory. You'll have until May 11th to get through of all of that. But if the return came on May the 12th, it would probably go to stranded inventory. Deal Hunter, before you send a box to an Amazon warehouse, do you put the products in a big box first, then check how many fit in that box and then print the labels? Or is there a best way or steps to follow? My prep center does most of it. But what we did with our last shipment that we did here out of the house, no, we created the shipment and then printed off the FNSKU labels, and then we boxed everything up, took measurements and weights and what went in what boxes, and then we created the actual boxes to be shipped off to Amazon via Inventory Lab. It's a simple process. Corey, is there someone I can hire to go through my business and adopt various software, then just give me a rundown to help manage my 2,100 listings I manually manage since I refused to? Dude, you're killing me, Corey. You are killing me, man. I mean, I'll help you, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. That's a lot of ASINs to have to go through. Christian, I've been trying to exclude CDs and vinyl from my Keepa results, but can't figure out how exactly. In Keepa Product Finder, there is categories, and you can exclude subcategories. You cannot exclude top level categories, just subcategories. So it's very likely, and you can only exclude up to 50 at a time, I think. So it's very likely that you may not be able to exclude all of the subcategories. It's probably just going to be easier to scroll past them when you see them. Victoria, I just started selling on Amazon and I listed my 3 products. I need to talk to the distributor to buy my product. How do I go about? You should not be listing anything that you don't have available to sell. So Victoria, I'm not sure, what videos you've been following, or who you've been learning from, but it sounds like you may have some things backward here. Um, 'Cause I'm not sure what 3 products you listed. I'm not sure what distributor you do have, or if you need to find a distributor. Um, you may want to take a little bit of time. I'm going to do a little shilling here, but go through and watch some of our beginner podcast episodes, and maybe try to get a little bit more information. That way you can make sure to do things the right way. Has anyone had success unlocking the new gates on L'Oreal, et cetera, using retail receipts? No, I don't think so.
I think that's L'Oreal is one of they're in the Estee Lauder category, right? They
believe
do
so.
not want their products on Amazon.
Yeah, which surprises me. If
Via
you're
third
okay
party.
with having them at Walgreens, why? I mean, if
Right.
it's and I know that not everything that they sell is drugstore quality, but like, let people sell the drugstore stuff.
Right. Exactly.
Tim, I'm super disappointed in the Adidas news. Yeah, a lot of people are. Do each of y'all recommend to sell larger clothing brands like Adidas with all that's going on? I don't think anyone should stop selling a particular brand. One, there's no way to know when this kind of thing might happen. We don't really get like a heads up. Amazon's not reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, listen, we just made a deal with Adidas, and this is coming 6 months from now." And on one hand, would I like them to do that? Yes. On the other, do I have this feeling that they don't do it because they worry what resellers would do by not selling that product any longer, like immediately? Probably. That's a great way to make sure you don't have a catalog full of product when that happens. So, like, I would never tell anybody to stop selling a particular brand until Amazon tells us. What I would suggest is you just need to be careful about how much exposure you have. We have a couple of risks in this business. The number one risk in this business is platform risk. That's the number one thing, because if Amazon decided to change gears tomorrow, they could say reselling is over. All right. Someone's going to clip that and use it against me, um, but they're not going to do that. Okay. But you can get suspended. Those are the big risks, is platform risk. After that, we've got brand risk. Any brand can work with Amazon and try to get things gated, try to be able to take over sales themselves, become their own third party seller, be able to manage their brand and all that kind of stuff. So the biggest protection you have is limiting how much exposure you have. And that's why people want to be on Walmart so much right now. It's limiting their platform risk on Amazon. And then there's platform risk on Walmart. So are you limiting your platform risk, or are you doubling your platform risk? I don't know. But that's the biggest thing. Sell whatever you can sell until you can't sell it anymore. But if you're going to lose a particular brand or a particular ASIN, make sure that it's not going to bankrupt you, because the whole goal of this game is to be able to make it an infinite game.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like, the recommendation to sell larger brands or not, I mean, that's almost like trying to pick out ASINs that might be more likely to trigger a Section 3. It's just, you have no idea, because here's the thing. If you're familiar with the method, you don't have to be experienced with it, but if you're familiar with the methods that they teach as far as wholesale, and I'm talking about the general ones that pretty much everybody teaches, if you were going out to get a wholesale account, and you had your sales pitch, and you figured out how you're going to approach them, whether it be a trade show or whatever. If you go to a trade show and you go, hey, I'm going to talk to the Milwaukee guy, there's tons of really profitable stuff, Milwaukee tools on the catalog. I would love to be able to get that at cost directly from Milwaukee. So you go and you talk to them, and things go well. And then after you're done, you get contacts, handshakes, all that stuff. Hey, I'll send you an email. Let's catch up. You do know that there are going to be other sellers behind you talking to that same rep, right? And trying to get the same thing that you're getting. And depending on the brand, there are going to be sellers behind you trying to negotiate exclusive deals, saying, hey, if you lose all of these other guys' numbers that you're going to see today and just deal with me, I promise you X spend every month, or whatever the promise is. They're trying to get exclusive deals. That's that model, and that little skit that I just did for you is taken from what Amazon and companies and brands like Amazon do, or Adidas do, on a grander scale. It's the same thing, So it's just a matter of how those negotiations go, and we're certainly not privy to them, but that's just kind of how the business operates.
Mm-hmm. Do you add in the supplier address and phone number when you send receipts to Amazon for ungating? Not usually on the first try. So my method for IP complaints, for inauthentic complaints, for ungating is always to try to give Amazon as little information as I possibly can that I think will work at first. Section 3 is different. Section 3, I'm going to overload them and give them everything. Okay. But when it comes to ungating inauthentic IP complaints, I try to give as little information as possible that I think will work on the front end. That way I have things that I can add next. So if they say no to the first submission, well, then I'll add in the order confirmation and the receipt. And then if they say no to that, well, I can add in the order confirmation and the delivery confirmation. And then on the fourth try, I'll add in a picture of the item in my hand. And then maybe I'll annotate all of the documentation as well to point out the right places. I have gone so far as to add a cover sheet and explain exactly what they will see in bullet points. Okay, just to try to make it stand out, make it look different, and have someone be like, oh, okay, this is what I'm looking at. I mean, they know what it is, but for whatever reason, but I always want to give myself, what can I do next? I want to give myself that opportunity. Tim, is there any way that you have found to get a brand that is restricted or hard gated, ungated, to sell successfully while being restricted on the platform? No. If there is some sort of hard gate, okay. I have a particular brand that I would actually really like to be able to sell, but unfortunately, I am what I call red restricted. There is no way for me to get ungated on that item at this moment. Now, could I get ungated later on down the road? Is there some sort of metric that I'm not hitting that Amazon requires for it? Maybe. But I'm also, it's not like a mobile game where they're like, hey, you hit these metrics and we're going to move you to the next level. I don't get that. And so I just got to kind of shoot in the dark and come back and check it every now and again.
Yeah. And honestly, that's like, Amazon has to keep that locked down. Like that's a solid for the brand that Amazon just, there can't be any kind of backdoor through something like
Yeah.
that.
And here's the it's actually a little hot take here for you guys. It's our fault as sellers. Because we are arbitrage sellers are by their very nature very opportunistic. We're looking for opportunities to leverage. We're looking for arbitrage opportunities all the time. Well, when we know there are loopholes to save money or to be able to sell more, we tend to walk through them until they get closed. That is actually one of the reasons that Amazon has made the shipping API updates that they have. It's because there were too many loopholes and they had to shut them down because we took advantage of them. And that is why information and things like that is often a black box. Rosalind, what are your thoughts on the Miami Seller Conference for a fairly new person? I think um, I think that any conference, uh, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure that there are bad conferences out there, but I think that 90% of the conferences out there, Miami Seller Conference included, are a net positive for anybody who goes and uh, does the conference right. And what I mean by that is do a little bit of homework ahead of time and say, you know what, I really want to listen to these particular people speak. For example, Scott Needham of Buy Boxer, who was an $80 million a year wholesale seller, is speaking at Miami Seller Conference this year. I want to hear him speak. Is he way ahead of where I plan to ever be? Yes, but I also find him incredibly intelligent, and he's got a lot of insight about the Amazon ecosystem. And so I'm curious to hear what he has to say. And there are a few other people that I want to hear speak as well. If someone is speaking about a topic that I'm not interested in, then the move is to go out into the hallway. See, there are going to be people talking to each other. Just go up and be interested. Introduce yourself, get in on the conversations. There's a lot to be learned out in the hallways. And a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I don't want to pay for all the extras, which is like some of the parties and things that at bars and stuff like that. It is worth it. All right. Relationships, if you're a salesperson, some of the best sales that I ever made were done belly up to a bar. Me and another business owner, I was selling insurance and sitting with them and just getting to know them and creating rapport. Well, the same thing happens with Amazon sellers. You get a little bit of social lubricant and you start talking about business and you share things and you'll learn a lot in some of those more intimate moments. And your ROI will be positive if you do the work that you have to do at a conference. And it can be hard because I'm not really an extrovert. So I need to take a nap.
And hallways are great because that's usually where the sandwiches are too. So
right.
You get now. Tell me if you agree with this statement. When you go to a conference, to see people speak, and hopefully there are a handful of people that you're interested in listening to. As a seller, it's easy to kind of go down kind of like sheltered paths, like talking about fake gurus or bad gurus that give bad advice and do gray hat or black hat practices. A conference like that, there's a bit of a requirement as far as the speakers themselves, right? Because if a bad guru was invited, that would have ripples through the overall schedule of participants that were, you'll get people who are like, now you invited so and so, I can't be a part of that, right? So it kind of doesn't, the collection of speakers kind of bring up the quality of the conference itself? Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. It kind of self polices, because if you want high quality,
Right.
you've got to keep high quality. Yeah. I would
Right.
agree with that.
So in that sense, especially for a new seller, it's you can take a little comfort in knowing that policing style is in place.
hmm I did see a private label guru say that the Miami Seller Conference was one of the lowest ROI conferences out there, and I was like, "You've never even been there. I've been to all of them, uh, um, and I may have called him a clown, which was not becoming of me, but I could not hold it in."
Imagine that, a PL guru saying something like that.
Ben, I will not say your last name, but did Amazon hardgate Adidas for the brand or some ASINs? It is some ASINs. It does not seem to be the entire brand. Mike, how long does it take for new stock to become old stock, which resellers can sell? Uh, that answer varies. You know, if Converse did this, which Converse did go through some gating things, last Q4, but Converse has been around for like what 110 years with their original shoe. So technically, that's never become old stock because that one shoe has been made forever. The Sambas have been around since what, the 60s, 70s, maybe.
Yeah, at
Um,
least, yeah.
Yeah. So those are never going to be old stock. There are certain shoes that only are around for one season. Now, we should say this. Will Amazon ungate those older listings? That is how it's supposed to work in theory. In practice, it's not always the case. Not every Under Armour item that is no longer in production, but maybe you could go get at some sort of liquidation store. I'm talking TJ Maxx, those kind of places. Not all of them are available to be sold, but a lot of them are. And the emails about Adidas, it applied to ASINs, not particular sellers or anything like that. Is anyone going to the ASGTG event in Brooklyn? No, unfortunately, I'm not headed that way. What is the Keepa product finder template 90-day drop percent mean? So then it depends, because there's 90-day drop percentages among several different types of filters in Keepa product finder. There's one for sales rank, there's one for price, etc. Well, a 90-day drop percentage is how much has the price dropped by percentage, or how much has the sales rank dropped by percentage over the course of that 90 days. Okay. That's what that means. Now, I'm going to confuse you here, most likely, if you don't spend a lot of time in Keep Product Finder, but you can turn that the other direction, and that 90-day drop can become a 90-day increase percentage if you use negative numbers. And if you want to learn some more about that, go check out. I've done Twitter threads on these kind of things, really deep Twitter threads. If you search my profile for Keepa, you're gonna find some good stuff there. Corey, you don't want to catch this smoke, bro. Being able to spot Ben's name gives me extreme faith in the boomer community. Corey, I do.
Corey, like I know you kids think human history began the day you were born, right? And nothing else existed prior to that day. But the joke behind Ben's name outdates even both of these boomers that you see on your screen. Like that's old stuff. That's vaudeville stuff. Like that's Great Depression kind of stuff. I mean, that's an old joke. So.
Corey, in reality, man, I do hope that we get to sit down and maybe have a beer together sometime. I think that would be a ton of fun. All right, I think that might be it. You know, Chris, as I was preparing for today's show, I came across a lot of unemployment jokes.
Yeah.
I did.
You gonna share one with us?
I was going to, but none of them work.
It's fantastic.
All right. All right, guys. That's it for us today. We'll be back this coming Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and we'll do this all over again, answer your guys' questions. We'll do a bit more of a deep dive into something, definitely a law or a razor, and then, of course, a little bit of news with you guys as well. So I hope to see you guys all here on Sunday. We'll do this all again. Until then, good selling, everybody.
Take your blood pressure meds.